Mr. Prime Minister, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying how honored and pleased I am to be here with Prime Minister Tusk speaking at this 10th anniversary seminar on the challenges faced by NATO. And let me also thank Minister Bogdan Klich for having invited me. And let me right away say that I want to congratulate Poland and the Polish people most sincerely with their 10 years in NATO. This is a very important day indeed. When Poland joined the alliance back in 1999, Foreign Minister Bronisław Geremek promised that Poland would be, I quote, a good and credible ally for good and bad weather, unquote. And I think there is no doubt that Poland has more than lived up to that promise by one of the key political figures in its recent history. 10 years of NATO membership, I think, is an excellent opportunity to look back and to reflect upon years gone by. But it's also, perhaps even more important, a good opportunity to draw some lessons for the future. After all, NATO's enlargement, Prime Minister Tusk said it a moment ago, is an ongoing process. 7 more countries have become members of NATO since Poland joined, together with the Czech Republic and Hungary 10 years ago. 2 countries are about to enter. And we know that several more wish to follow in their footsteps. We owe it to all interested countries, whether now or in the future, to share your experience and to help them prepare for membership. I know that the term historic is used too often perhaps nowadays, yet the significance of what happened on the 12th of March 1999 can hardly be overstated. On that day, when Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary formally acceded into NATO, the Cold War ended for good and justice triumphed over history. It was an overwhelming demonstration of the right of any European nation to determine its own fate by its own free choice. And it was a huge step towards the free, undivided and democratic Europe to which NATO had aspired from its very beginning, now almost 60 years ago. The accession of Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary was important for these 3 nations themselves, important for NATO, and important for Europe as a whole. For the 3 new members, it marked, of course, the return to the Europe from which they had been forcefully separated. NATO membership gave you a seat at the table where key decisions are taken to shape our strategic environment. It gave you allies whom to share the common burden of security. And of course, Prime Minister, indeed, it gave you the ultimate security guarantee of Article 5 of the Washington Treaty and the assurance that allies would come to your assistance if you ever came under attack. For NATO, the accession of Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary marked another step in its post-Cold War adaptation, with 3 new members adding new military and political weight to shape the strategic environment in a positive way. And for Europe, it marked both the end and its erstwhile division and a new beginning at the threshold of the 21st century, because the old continent was finally able to leave its tragic past behind. Over the subsequent few years, the accession of Poland, the Czech Republic and Hungary proved wrong all those who feared that enlargement could be a net loss for European security. It proved wrong all those who saw enlargement as the creation of a new division. And it proved wrong all those who maintained that it would undermine NATO's cohesion and effectiveness or that it would force the new members to devote too much of their scarce resources to defense. None of these predictions, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, none of these predictions came true. Thanks to NATO's enlargement and partnership policies, alongside those of the European Union, our continent has never been more stable and more secure. And the prospect of membership in these two key institutions remains a major incentive for nations all across Europe to get their house in order, introduce difficult but necessary reforms, and pursue good neighborly relations. NATO's cohesion and effectiveness have not been affected either. The Czech Republic, Hungary and Poland have all integrated smoothly. They have made their voices heard and are making their voices heard, of course, but they've also displayed the same team spirit as all other allies and contributed to the consensus decision-making which underpins our alliance. More than that, they have become important and valued contributors to NATO's operations and missions. Today, Poland has around 1,600 soldiers in ISAF. I'll go to Ghazni and visit your fellow countrymen next week, and another close to 300 in KFOR. The costs of NATO membership have also remained modest. We acknowledged that they would not be trivial, but that they could be stretched over a longer period of time. We said that the necessary military reforms of our three new allies would need to be ambitious, and that they should continue after their accession. And we said that, while our new allies would naturally have to make their contribution, the benefits that NATO membership would bring would be very much greater. And that was borne out by the facts. And today, while the global financial economic crisis leaves none of the allies unaffected, NATO membership continues to offer us all excellent value for money. Of course, back in 1999, some nations were disappointed to be left out of this first round of enlargement, but none gave up its ambition to join NATO, and 7 more were admitted just a few years later. At the beginning of 2004, as one of my first official acts as NATO Secretary General, I had the privilege to communicate to them our invitation to accede to the North Atlantic Treaty. And I have warm memories of the accession ceremony in Washington, D.C. in March of that year, 2004. Now, in a few weeks' time, at NATO's 60th anniversary summit in Strasbourg and Kiel, in the heart of Europe, I hope that 2 more nations will be joining our alliance. I say 2 because it is my strong hope that both Albania and Croatia will be with us as full members for this great celebratory moment. We have made clear repeatedly, and no doubt will do so again at our next summit, that NATO's door remains open for future members. Indeed, Mr. Prime Minister, NATO's door remains open for future members. And interested countries, like everyone else, know that we mean what we say. So in retrospect then, NATO enlargement has proved the doomsayers to be totally wrong. Enlargement has not fallen victim to a zero-sum logic. NATO members have managed the process well, and it has been a very clear benefit for European security. Still, although NATO enlargement has been very successful thus far, we must constantly remind ourselves that this is not an end in itself. Enlargement is a means to an end. And that end is to safeguard our security in a rapidly changing world. Now, if we take this aim seriously, then we must not rest on our laurels, but move on. In fact, as someone once pointed out to me, he who can rest on his laurels probably wears them in the wrong place. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what are the challenges ahead? What must an enlarged NATO do in order to safeguard our security and our freedom in today's world?